Yes, another edition of Duffus Meets, and this time we are joined by South London's very own Roman Harris.
What's good, man? Yeah, bloop, 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 South London.
So, Roman is, I would describe you, what, singer, songwriter, acoustic guitar player?
You know, I would just say Roman Harris is an artist.
Yes, yeah.
The artist known as Roman Harris.
Because as I know, you're multi-talented.
Yeah.
And obviously we're gonna dig into, say, like the music stuff, but there are some other things as well.
Yeah, indeed. Music, you know, that's always been a deep passion. And then, as you know, there's a bit of comedy, acting, just presenting. Just if you can do it, do it.
For real,
you know?
for real.
Yeah.
So let's get into the music side of things, man. So I kind of indicated where you were from. So where did you grow up? And stuff?
Yeah, so born in South London. I grew up in Herne Hill, so close to Brixton. That was my first home, and I went to Jessup Primary School, which is the local primary school around that area. And I lived in South London until I was about 10. And then my parents moved me to live in Guyana, South America. And I always say Guyana, South America, because so many people, they've never heard of Guyana.
I like that. I like how you, I
have to. And then people, they always think it's Ghana. Like I might have said Ghana. I'm like, no, Guyana. So yeah, so it's the only English-speaking country in South America. And it's one of those weird places where, in the sense of, it's on the continent of South America, but it's part of the Caribbean community. So that's the way Guyana kind of rolls. So I lived there from the age of 10 to 16. And then at 16, came back to the UK because there was just maybe a bit more opportunity here for work and for the passions that I wanted to continue trying to kind of realize. And so, yeah, been back here ever since, you know.
So with that, how did your musical journey start? When did you think, I've got a talent here? Or when did you realize this is a talent I wanted to pursue? Yeah,
good question, bro. I mean, funnily enough, sometimes the talents that we have, we don't even realize it ourselves. Excuse me. Sometimes we need people to actually show us that we can do something, you know? And it was when I was a little boy, I was probably like 5 or 6. And obviously, look, you know, we grew up in an era where Michael Jackson was the man. And like, you know, I remember that Bad album cover. I used to, you know, he had on that suit with all of the little things on it, like these belts, buckles and stuff. I used to get clothes pegs and stick them to myself and act like that was the same thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, as kids, we imitate what we see. And from the dancing to the singing. And my sister Aisha, she heard me singing and she was like, I mean, you got a bit of a voice there, you know?
Wow. So
she used to encourage me to record stuff. So she had a little tape recorder and I would sing songs onto that. You know, Michael Jackson, like, you are not alone. Woo-hoo! You know, choose there, right? So she kind of discovered my voice. And I come from quite a creative family. Like my mum and my dad used to write poetry and still do. So I was always being raised around that kind of creativity. And then I started writing poetry. And so slowly but surely, it's like, okay, I can sing, I can write poetry. Naturally, you put the two together and before you knew it, I was writing songs, you know, and that's where it really sparked. That's where it all started, you know.
And I mentioned about like playing acoustic guitar and stuff like that. So what about that? How did you learn to play the guitar and stuff?
Yeah, like instrument wise, I think it's a great thing for a child to kind of be able to learn how to play an instrument. My parents tried to get me into playing guitar from a young age, but I wasn't having it, B.
For real?
Like I wasn't really having it. Like I wanted to just watch cartoons and play with my friends. And
okay.
so I didn't apply that discipline to it that I should have at that young age.
Right.
But then when I hit about 16, 17, I started to get into more acoustic music or like indie rock, like Coldplay and Oasis and those bands.
Right.
So I was like, I need to know how to play this instrument. And so I enrolled myself in a course and, you know, learned how to do the basics. And then once I could do that, just took it from there, you know. I always think to myself, if only, you know when you do that one, like, if only I had listened when I was younger, I'd be able to play so much better now. Life is what it is, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
How would you describe, like, your sound and your style for people that haven't heard or not familiar with your stuff?
I always say my music is kind of like a fusion between indie, like indie rock, folk music, and R&B. And the reason why I always highlight those three genres is because I feel like they are the three genres that I'm most influenced by. So when you think indie rock, I think of bands like Coldplay, and I think of like like I said, Coldplay, Oasis, you know, Blur, like those kinds elements that are somewhat like that. And then for folk, I think of like Bob Dylan and those people who could really spin such a beautiful picture with words and lyrics. And then R&B, because I mean, I grew up on, you know, the Joe and like, you know, all of those R&B singers and those tunes that you just hear and then they infect you right away. You're like, oh, they're playing that song. So those are my three influences mainly, man. You know.
Oh, nice one. And what about like sort of like musical influences or musical heroes, like some of the people you look up to and stuff?
Well, funnily enough, as you asked me that, like I know you can't see it, but like I'm sat at like my studio desk at the moment, and on the wall in front of me is a picture of Jimi Hendrix. And Jimmy was like one of those way before my time. But you know when you're growing up and your parents tell you about the greats, and then over time you start researching and you start realizing, wow, like these people were instrumental in music being what it is. So like Jimi Hendrix, like Prince, for example. I remember growing up and seeing like the vinyl of Prince Purple Rain and Guns N' Roses, and these people were like phenomenal. Like played a massive impact in my life and my music life. So that's just a few of them. There's too many to mention, man. You know?
Yeah, for real. And what about who you listen to at the moment?
And there's no one that I particularly follow and listen to like avidly anymore. But if I hear something, and we all know that feeling when you hear something and you're like, this isn't the run of the mill. This isn't what I'm hearing all the time. I like that, or I like this, etc. If I hear something, it stands out, and then it gets added to the playlist, or I might look into that artist a bit more. But at the moment, man, I struggle. I struggle to tell you someone that I'm like, yeah, you know.
Yeah, no, I hear that, man. And as a songwriter, as well as like, you know, your own individual artist, have you written for anyone? Have you written for anyone else before?
Yeah, I'd say my biggest musical break so far, it came with a song that I co-wrote with an artist called Malika. And we co-wrote a song called Falling. Yeah. And that song got picked up by a group called Snake Hips. And that song got released, I think it was via Warner Records. And like, that was the first moment that I felt like, wow, like it was like validation. Like you've been doing something for so long and you're like, see, I told you I could do this. Like, like I knew the stuff I was writing was half good. Like, you know what I mean? So that was a good feeling. And then subsequently through like doing networking with different people, I actually got to write with some guys from the Netherlands, and we released a song called Moving Again. So I wrote that one and they produced it. And, you know, those opportunities, when they arise, it's such a beautiful feeling because, like I say, it's validation for your work, you know, and your craft. And yeah, just continuing to write for myself, you know, and always seeking out opportunities. And when they come, it's just about snatching them up. you know?
Yeah, for real. Obviously, I've had the pleasure of hearing you, seeing you perform. You performed at one of our events.
Yeah, it was an honor to do so, man. You know,
convention. That was good, man, and it was like really interesting with people that knew me that didn't know you, and they were like, "This guy's really good, man." And I was like, "Yeah, man, Roman's an artist." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, it took me a long time to even be confident enough to say those words, like, I'm an artist. You know, it took me a long time to say that. A lot of the time, you think about what you're going to classify yourself as, and life is like that. Life is about it. No matter how hard you try, people and society, they want to put you in a box. You have to fall into a category. And for so long, I didn't really know what I felt comfortable calling myself in terms of which category I fell into. But artist is probably the purest category that I could say I am, because someone might say, well, that's vague. What is it that you do then? Like, and in my mind, I'm like, I do whatever my spirit takes me to do it. Like, don't get me wrong. I know I can write songs and I know I can sing, so therefore you could say I'm a musician or I'm a singer-songwriter. But equally, I know that I can present, I can talk to people, I can create. And that's what artists do. You create. That's the key thing there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%.
So yeah, so I just think if you're creating, then you're an artist. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself and say, well, I only create this or I only create that. Yeah. Nah, you create, you know? That's exactly what you're doing right now. Like, this is creating space and interaction, and other people will watch this and then they'll be moved or inspired.
Yeah.
You're creating. You know what I mean? And that's what I think we're all born to do from the start.
Yeah.
It's just that the world requires certain things of us, and sometimes we forget that, you know?
Yeah.
We're creative beings, man. We have to be, you know?
I hear you, man. And speaking of the art form, something you've like started to dabble in probably about 18 months now, like the comedy.
Yeah, probably about, you know what, I'd say it's coming up to 12 months. It's coming up to 12, but a couple of those months have been in lockdown.
Okay.
So, so I don't count those months.
And you've been doing a little bit of stand-up.
So, bro, I said, you know what, I've always wanted to do stand-up. Like, love stand-up comedy. And I've always been like, I want to know if I can make people laugh, you know?
Yeah.
If I can take my perspective on the world or on a certain thing and make it funny enough to have a room of people actually laughing at it, you know? Mm. And so, yeah, I did a 6-week course in stand-up comedy. And after that, I did that course like almost 2 years ago, just to prove to myself that I can do it.
Right.
Finished the course, never got back on stage again until after I had this experience of this, you know, the voice and having these chats with my family. And yeah, I did it, man. I wrote my first like a first piece of original material. I got on stage in Brixton at the Ritzy.
Nice.
There was a night that was organized there called Get Laughs or Die Trying. So yeah, so I did it and it went really well for my first like really proper time on stage in front of like paying customers and no one who was there to kind of like, you know, give you an easy smile or an easy laugh. It went well and I just kept going from there, you know. It's a really, really great art form. I'm just like really glad to have done it, you know.
Nah, big up, man. Big up.
Respect, man. Respect.
So in terms of like, what advice would you give to say like, maybe like young people watching this who might want to get into like a certain industry like music or some form of artistic thing? What advice would you give them?
Well, the first thing I would say is this advice is for any and everybody, young or old, like straight up, is if you have a passion for it, first and foremost, if you have a true passion for it, don't be talked out of giving it a try. You know what I mean? Try it. That's the first thing. Just give it a try. So that may mean putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, because the first time we do anything, we're not going to be totally comfortable with it. We're not going to be proficient at it, you know? So put yourself in a position where you know you're going to feel slightly uncomfortable, because then you know you're growing, you know you're stretching yourself. So yeah, give it a try first and foremost, and just be a sponge. Like, don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to be a student again.
Yeah.
Because when I started to get into stand-up comedy, I had to be a student again. I go to comedy nights just to watch, just to see how different comedians do their thing, their stage presence, how they write. And I ask questions and listen to audio books, and don't be afraid to be a student, you know, like embrace all of that newness.
Yeah.
And yeah, don't give up. That's the third thing. Like, there's a quote from an artist, what's his name? I can't remember his name. But I was reading an interview with him, and it said something like, why do you think you made it? And he was like, look, I have played with people who are better than me. Like, I've genuinely seen it. Like, these people are better than me. The only difference between the two of us is I kept going and they didn't, you know? And sometimes that is what it comes down to, not necessarily the talent level. It's kind of like how long you can keep going for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's sometimes all it is.
Yeah.
Trust me, I have had serious feelings of wanting to stop. Like, serious feelings of like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm done with the music thing. Like, I don't want to write no more. I'm not going to do this or that. And then you just, for some reason, you just keep doing it. Like, I just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And it might be in 4 or 5 years from now that the break happens. But it's only going to happen if you keep going.
Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, give it a try. Don't be afraid to fail. Be a sponge. Don't be afraid to be a student. And yeah, like, don't stop. If you love it that much, don't stop. You know.
Boom, boom. So, Roman, what material have you had out or currently got out right now?
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, this is the self-promotion. This is the self-promotion section of the interview.
Yeah.
So I put out 3 songs last year. Just 3 singles to kind of like test the water, but also try to build a bit of a following. The first one was called The Smell of Heather. The second one was called Get Me, Got Me. And the third one was called Upon a Lifetime. All of them you can find on streaming services and like available to download, and on YouTube too. You know, there's music videos for each of them. I wanted to make sure that I had visuals for all of the videos that I did, just because I know that's the world we live in. You know, if people hear you, the next thing they want to do is see you. You know, so, and then this year, before we entered into this, you know, this pandemic and this lockdown that we're in, I was lucky enough to release my 4th single, which was called Come Around, which is what none of us are supposed to be doing right now. Like, no one's going around to anybody's yard. But yeah, it's entitled Come Around. And again, that's on all streaming services and videos on YouTube also. So, you know, if you want to hear a bit of what I do, then yeah, by all means, just search for Roman Harris, and it's out there. It's out there.
Nice one. I like Upon a Lifetime. I think that's my tune there, man.
You know, bro, I think that's the one that did the best so far. That's had the most streams and the most hits on that one. And I think it's just one of those songs where I wrote that song in like 40 minutes. Like, I sat down on my keyboard, and then in 40 minutes it was done. And some songs, it feels like they're already written. It's like, you just have to kind of access them. You know, you have to be on the right frequency just to download it. But it's like it's written already, you know? And that was definitely one of them. And I think it just appeals to a lot of people because we've all been there. Like, in some way, shape or form, we've all had that feeling of a relationship that just couldn't be. Yeah. And you got to let it go, man. So yeah.
For real. How you coping with lockdown? Everything all good?
Oh man, as soon as the cameras go off, I'm gonna be falling apart again, man. Nah. I'm one of the lucky ones, bro. I'm one of the lucky ones in the sense that I still work. I still number one, I still have a job. And number two, it's a job that means I have to leave. I have to go out, you know. So I'm not necessarily working from home. So for those who don't know, which is probably going to be the majority of people watching this, I'm a firefighter, and I've worked as a firefighter in London for 10 years now. So we have to be at work, you know what I mean? So it gets me out. It gets me out of the house. It means that I do interact a little bit with other people. And that has been a true blessing. But even with that, there are times when the situation gets the better of me, you know? And you're just at home and you just want to go somewhere. You just feel like you want to go out and socialize again, go to a comedy club or see your mates and whatever.
But Roman, where can people find you on your socials? Like, what's your...
Instagram is probably the one I use more often, but I'm on Instagram and Twitter. So just search for at I am Roman Harris and you'll find me. In terms of YouTube, just search for Roman Harris and I'm sure my channel will pop up. There's not too many Roman Harrises out there, although I do know that there's a character in Home and Away called Roman Harris. And he's annoying me because I still think he's the first search that comes up in Google. So my dream is to be more famous than this character in Home and Away. Surely we can get there.
Yeah, bro. Oh, nice one. Well, listen, Roman, I really appreciate your time and thanks for taking part in Duffus Meets, man.
Bless, man. It's been a pleasure. Great to see you, bro. And keep doing your thing, man. Much appreciated.
Respect, man. Thank you.
Bless. Peace.